Made the decision to go to Bible college. And at the time, we had been playing in a side band where we all swapped instruments. I played drums and Jesse played guitar. And this kid that I didn't know by the name of Sean Jonas was the singer. He was a friend of Jesse's from school.
And Sean Jonas had been a friend of mine in grade school. We grew up in the same neighborhood and had rabble-roused together, and he had just become a Christian. I remember Sean being at that last show and with Eric, and Eric like grabbed him and like pushed him into the crowd. And after the show, we had kind of been talking to Sean about like, hey, Eric's gonna leave, and Eric actually came to us 2 nights later and was like, that's the guy that's supposed to be your singer.
I went and did a few practices with him, and I didn't really realize that I could do it until we did our first show, and then we started just playing out with one another, and it actually worked out for the best.
Sean was very, very on fire for God, and so we knew that, you know, as far as like at the time what we were doing, that was going to be a smooth transition as far as somebody being on the same page and wanting to say and convey the same ideals as far as like the message of the band.
The boldness from Earth Crisis and their front man really inspired me to be more bold from the mic, because him being vegan and straight edge and just how they were so militant and so inspired by that movement, and how he brought it across on stage inspired me to bring across vocally how I felt about Jesus and how I felt about God.
We stand up and fight for our Lord Jesus Christ. Because we're not going to let it tear us up. We're not going to let it tear us apart. This personal. This goes out to God. This is what surrounds me. That's not the Holy Spirit doing work right now. I get freedom with Christ. Get freedom with the Lord.
The way a hardcore scene was set up at the time is that you spoke from your heart. You spoke what you were about and what you stood for. And we were all about that, and we used that to its fullest capacity, you know. And whenever we would go out, I would speak whatever was on my heart that night, and because of that, we got the label as being a Christian band, and that wasn't our true intention. Our true intention was just to play music and have a good time, but because of our deep-rooted relationship with God, it always came across very powerful, and God used it. I mean, we were able to touch a lot of people's lives, and it was awesome.
Jesus Christ is very simple. Very simple. There's a plan for each and every life in here. A plan. It's just to be with Jesus. And all you have to do is just very simple. Just believe in your heart. Just believe in your heart. And confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord. And invite him into your life.
I think we had toured maybe once. I mean, things were so hard on that level for us as a band, because first of all, everybody hated us because we were Christian. Second of all, we were really weird musically. And I don't know, it was just like everything was, I remember we played our first big show with Chokehold and Snapcase, and I remember like 400 kids being there at the Canton Y, and them giving us $8, and me and Eric it was right before Sean, you know, and we replaced him or whatever, but me and Eric and Roy and Mick sleeping on a barn floor in February.
We recorded the album All Else Failed in a studio called Spider Studios.
We did it with Ben Schnigel or something, I think.
We knew some of the recordings that were coming out of there at the time. The guy, Ben, actually worked with bands like Integrity.
He just, you know, he does all the Chimera albums, and he just did the New Disturb.
We pull into this driveway. It was in basically a neighborhood.
Just this little whole studio, awesome, but just little garage.
It says Spider Studios on this garage. So we go, and it's actually in a garage. So we walk in, and his setup was actually pretty sweet. He had a little, you know, chill out area, and then he had the studio.
Sean was doing a vocal take, and I think the song was In Loving Kindness. At the end, there's this like really long scream Well, Ben gets up, and like Sean starts screaming on this part, and Ben goes and gets a soda, and when he comes back, Sean's still screaming. And he was like, what the heck? You've been that same yell for like 30 seconds.
Ben had set up to his soundboard. He had his soundboard hooked up to a television out in the waiting room. And whenever we needed a clip for like a sound effect or anything, he would hit a button which would cue the TV up, and whatever channel was on, he'd get like a little quick clip or a phrase for somebody. And I remember one of the significant endings to the album is I'm weak now, I'm getting sick of this place. It was something that was said. It was a quick clip, and we didn't know where that came from, and we went out to the waiting room where his TV was, and it came from the TV show The Simpsons, the cartoon The Simpsons, and we were just like, oh man, that's crazy, but it worked. It was pretty significant. Looking back, I always wonder, how did we do that? Because we had 3 days to record, mix, and like finalize. The drums sounded okay, the guitar sounded okay. I know every time I palm muted or crunched, you could hear the springs jangling inside my guitar. The bass sounded okay. We did it in a rush, man, but it just kind of came out magic.
You know, I'm definitely by this point full on in the scene, listening to, you know, whatever I want without conviction, and everybody else is still kind of in their own youth group world. Not that that's bad, you know, but that was when right out when All Us Feld came out and we came to California for the first time. That was when I was like, okay, this is on, something's going on, it's gonna, you know, going down.
The first person I ever met in Zao was Jesse, and at that time, with me being in a different band, we played a show with them. I think it was in Ohio, and he came up to me, like, approached us. He seemed very genuine, really cool, really, really nice, and like there to like help you out. We like asked him, because at the time I wasn't in a Christian band, and we asked, like, is this a Christian show? And he's like, dude, it's all cool, man. We'll just play. It'll be fun. And that's kind of how I met anybody first, was Jesse. They seemed just kind of like a generic Earth crisis. At the same time, like, that was kind of what was going on at the time, and it was cool to see that. But I was definitely not into that style of music or anything, but the guys seemed really cool.
My first exposure to the original Zao lineup would have been, I had started booking shows at a local club called Illusions, which Scott also had set up some shows. I kind of like took over where Scott left off. Scott had kind of quit doing them. We were basically looking for, you know, at the time we were all in pretty heavy Christian bands, and, you know, really involved in the church, and we kind of we were looking for more bands in general, but we were mainly looking for other Christian-based bands for us to play with, you know, heavy bands and things. And, you know, it's very obvious with the original lineup of Zao, you know, what they were and, you know, what they were all about. So Jack gave me a number for one of them, and probably Jesse, but I don't remember at this point. And I called them, and yeah, they came up to Greensburg. I don't remember the date, but I could find it. And they came up, and we met them at the good old Greensburg Eaton Park. And I think it was myself and the guys in my band at the time, Pensive. It was Brett, Chad, Josh Walters, and I think a couple of the Seasons guys too.
At the time, we really weren't even familiar with their music. I believe someone just had recommended that, you know, we get a hold of them to have them play this show. And none of us had ever even heard them yet.
But we showed up at Eaton Park and got some food, and then took them straight to Illusions. And you know, we kind of wanted to show that we were, you know, the big boys on the block. So we set up some sound checks at Illusions, which was an absolute rarity, if not, you know, never done. And you know, we sound checked what we thought were our best songs, trying to impress these out-of-town guys. And then, you know, naturally we let them come up and do their sound check, and they thoroughly blew all of the Greensburg bands off the stage.